일이 있었습니다.
Air Force fighter pilot ejected this morning in South Korea. The dramatic footage was captured on a local CCTV footage showing the fiery impact.
Pulling the handle with the left hand, and things got really loud and really, really aggressive, really fast. All the caps and all the boldface you've ever done, that anytime the word eject is on it, they always talk about all the sims that you do, you know, engine failure right after takeoff, you know, zoom towards jet eject. Like, you've said it 1,000 times, you've done it 1,000 times in the sim, but they never talk about like what lies on the other side of that yellow handle. It is a significant emotional event.
My burn ramp curveballs at 354. Lights on. Next picture 15,000.
Teddy, thanks for joining me on the podcast, man. It's an honor to have you on here. Looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today.
Yeah, for sure.
You had a pretty sporty time in the Viper so far, which we'll definitely get into, so I think people want to hang around. But obviously, F-16 pilot, you do have a significant story, again, like we'll talk about. But then also you founded Fortune Hunting Company, which I think we have a few of those guys who like hunting in this, which we'll be interested to chat about as well, as how you started that and what you're doing with Fortune Hunting Co. So,
haven't been in the Viper very long, but it was a wild ride about a year or two in.
Literally a wild ride. But, you know, hey, here you are. Did you get a tie or a pin?
I don't want to throw too many spears because you've got quite the platform, but I'm pretty frustrated at the Aces 2 people, like old Collins Aerospace, let me tell you.
Hey, all right. Well, there's got to be one or two of them listening to this. So
I hope so. I really hope so.
They can make it right. Well, hey, man, before we get rolling into this, really like just kind of back up. What got you started? What got you interested in flying in the first place?
So I am a Oklahoma born and raised guy down in Lawton, Oklahoma. And so Shepherd Air Force Base, as you know, is an hour south of that. So I grew up where in the mountains I'd go hike around in, the golf course I'd go play in is right underneath the MOAs that Shepherd Air Force Base uses. So I grew up and they would do low approaches over at Fort Sill Army Airfield, and I'd be playing golf and seeing T-38s fly around. But growing up in an Army town, and talked to a family friend, and he was like, dude, you need to go to West Point, or at least, you know, he's a West Point guy, so he's biased. He was like, you should go to West Point, or at the very least, the Air Force Academy. You know, like, you can settle for that. I was like, all right, fine. So me and him I grew up seeing all the jets flying over, and I always thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool. And then the Academy dream kind of really came alive. And after I really committed to that, I went to like a summer seminar, if you will. Have you ever heard of Boys State?
I have, yeah. Actually,
it's like, I did it fake mini government thing.
Yeah.
Kind of helps you get into the academy. Had a family friend who all of her sons went to West Point. So she was like, you need to go to this. It's a good resume builder. And whenever I checked in there, we're doing all of our formation and marching stuff. And then like my air quotes commanding officer was an A-10 pilot. Couldn't tell you his name, but he was just walking around in a green bag all day. And I was like, dude, that's what I want to do for a living forever. So that was kind of where the dream really ignited, and then just continued to chase the Air Force Academy dream all throughout high school, because I figured that would be my highest PK of getting a pilot slot, really. I wasn't dead set on the I guess I was dead set on going to the academy, and if the pilot training thing didn't work out, it just seemed like the best odds game, you know?
Yeah, interesting. I guess I don't know if I really thought about the odds game, because I was like, I'll go to the academy, but then short side, I'm like, not saying I would have gotten into it, but I was like, I don't know if I want to go do that 7 days a week. Like, ROTC sounds kind of more my speed.
Yeah, and I just kind of played to my strengths. I knew that I've never been the guy who's always like naturally just number one, the absolute best at things, you know? But I've always been the guy that can like really tough things out better than most. So I was like, well, I bet you I can suffer with the best of them for 4 years. And if I can just be like middle of the road, then I'll be able to hopefully get a pilot slot, you know? And that being said, you still had to make good ACT scores, which I did not have. So I was on the 5-year plan at the academy, got the really awesome, we regret to inform you letter 7 days before I graduated high school. I was like, cool.
Really?
I don't have a backup plan. So ended up getting that, and then a couple days right before graduation, got a phone call and saying, hey, we have this like scholarship we'd like to offer you. If you go to this prep school for a year, then as long as you don't get arrested, fail any classes, or get a girl pregnant, you can go to the academy next year. And I was like, I can definitely do that. So
was that that's the Air Force Academy prep school, right?
So that one wasn't an option. I didn't go like to the P, as they call it back then. is they send you this list. It's actually another funny story. You said long answers are approved, so I'm going to give you the long answer.
That's what we want.
I got this letter, and it just said, here are these 7 different schools that are available to you. And one of them was a military academy that one of my good friends in high school, his parents sent him to because he was just like a spoiled, rotten kid. And so they're like, you're going to military school. He got back, and I heard all these horror stories, and I'm like, I'm definitely not going there. And I just looked at where all of them were, and one of them was in like the mountains of California. And I was like, well, I'll just do that. That sounds fun. So ended up going to Northwestern Preparatory Academy for 1 semester, and then regular college for 1 semester. And then that summer I went to the academy.
I had no idea that was even a thing. I've always heard about the prep school if you need an extra lap to get the grades up and things like that. But is that something the Air Force Academy always does? Like, hey, they'll funnel out to all these.
Yeah, so it's actually a foundation that does it. It's called the Falcon Foundation Scholarship. We're getting like super in like the big blue nerdery here, but it's basically for all the kids who like barely missed the cut and if they are interested. So that was what I was told whenever I had a conversation with my like liaison officer to help me out getting in the academy. Was that, dude, you barely missed the cut. If you're willing to do this thing for a year, we can probably get you in next year. And I was like, sure. But the actual academy prep school is really for mostly athletes and prior enlisted.
Gotcha.
So like if you got a stud football player, but his grades aren't quite there, they'll send him to the prep school, see if he can hack it there. If he can hack it there, then most of the time they get into the academy to be an athlete. Or the prior enlisted guys, like my roommate, who was really smart in high school, but then he went and he did another job. Like he hasn't done school in 6 years, you know?
Right.
So it takes a while to like get your brain back in that mentality, if you will.
Dude, my 9-year-old's like doing fractions and multiplying fractions, and I'm like, oh, this has been like decades.
Oh yeah.
My brain.
Yeah, our kids will ask me the math questions because math isn't mom's strong suit, and they're like, hey, they'll call me or FaceTime me since I'm over here. I've been away for so long, but they'll FaceTime me like, hey, can you help me with this math problem? I'm like, yeah. And there's been a couple. I'm like, all right, dude, just like send me a picture of it. Let me write it out. And he's just now in 7th grade. So,
well, they do. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it now. So I start showing my son something. My wife's like, that's not how they do it. I'm like, what do you mean that's not how they do it? It's like some made up now method that I've never heard of. Not saying I know it all, right? But you're like, do we not change this for thousands of years? Now all of a sudden we're just like La La Land. So
yeah, absolutely.
Digress.
So long story short, there was the aviation dream started growing up, and I figured the best way for me to achieve that goal was to go to the Air Force Academy. So kind of set my sights on that at a young age.
Did you have some medical issues where you had to get a waiver in the academy once you got a pilot slot, if I read your bio correctly?
Yeah. So that was step 1 of the waiver process that, as we're talking about, I'm currently fighting, but we'll get into that, the reason of why I'm refighting it later. But yeah, I mean, I just grew up playing the drums and shooting guns, and so my hearing wasn't super great. So I had to get a waiver. So that was like kind of terrifying. Is I got a pilot slot, and they're like, hey, we need to make sure, I guess vice versa, but you had to apply to even be qualified to apply for like a rated position.
Right.
And that was about a 7-month process before I heard back. They're like, yeah, you're approved. You can get this waiver done and everything.
Because it's probably changed since I've done it. And if I remember correctly, we had to do a medical, and it came back with like potentially pilot qualified or pilot qualified, you know, and so that meant you passed everything. And then obviously if you got selected to go to pilot training, then good to go. Is that so in that process, initially, that's when you got flagged for a hearing, so you weren't pilot qualified?
Yeah, I got flagged and then had to go see the audiologist, and I've got asymmetric hearing, if you really want to get into it, where I'm pretty deaf in it's like 3 frequencies in my right ear. And she was like, well, you have asymmetric hearing, and a lot of times this stems from brain tumors, so we're going to have to send you over to get an MRI. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that escalated.
I go check in with them. They're like, yeah, we can't send you in for like 2 months. And I was like, I have a brain tumor. I need one right now. And she was like, well, sorry, I'll see you in 2 months. So it was quite the process.
Well, the only reason I ask is, I mean, I will get guys and gals to send me messages about medical stuff. I would say fairly frequently, maybe a few times a month, someone will ask, you know, a medical waiver question, which I do not have the answer to, but usually have enough buddies who've gone through something. So I think people are curious about like someone who has gone through the waiver process and been successful in it, and just kind of hearing, was it determination that got you through it? Was it just, hey, this is the process, I got to run through it? I mean, I don't know what were some of the thoughts to to get through? What did you do to get through this waiver process?
Dude, it was just a typical Air Force answer, but it was a lot of just hurry up and wait. Like they send you down a rabbit hole to go get more tests done. You go do all those tests. You submit them in. You hope that they're enough. Sometimes they come back, but it was tough, especially there, because you're in like a little, like you're in like underneath you're in a little like petri dish of all these really successful and like the 1% of the 1%, if you will. And everyone's getting, all my buddies were getting their pilot slots or pilot qualifications, if you will. And I'm still just waiting for this waiver. And I'm like, dang, like I really hope this thing goes through. I really hope this thing goes through. But it all ended up going and like getting approved and everything is fine. And it's gotten significantly worse since flying in the Air Force, for sure. Like now it's just hearing in both ears that are going already. So, but it was tough because everyone's bragging about, I got my PQ, like, and they sit in their dream sheet of jobs, if you will. And then we had our like job selection day, and those are some high stress moments for sure. We always make this joke, like guys that go to the academy or even just in the Air Force in general are like toxic gamblers, because like you're literally just gambling your entire life on what the Air Force says you're going to do over and over and over again.
Yeah, you're at their mercy, and if something goes sideways, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky. And again, just right place, right time, right qualifications usually works out. But occasionally, like the bad deal train shows up, whether that might be some kind of random medical deal, a random 365 that just derails you and takes you down a different path. But yeah, man, you're rolling the dice for sure. But
every time, dude.
Sometimes it works out. Guard and reserve. There you go.
Knock on wood. I've been very, very lucky so far. Everything that I thought wasn't what I wanted ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened for me. So whether it's God or whether it's the Air Force, but I highly doubt it's the Air Force. They always like kind of knew what was better for me, and so it's just funny. You build these dreams and these ideas in your head, and they're so small-minded, like they're very short-term, if you will, just because that's the nature of our being. But every time, like the long-term answer has always been the best one for me, and that's what I've gotten. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to get the 60,000-foot view on life when you're down in the weeds on a daily basis, right? Like I 100% agree with that. And it usually pans out, and everything happens for a reason. So, yeah. This is kind of out of order here, but I think it'd be good to compare or get your take. So you're now TFI, the total force integration, active duty guy flying at a guard unit.
Yep.
Would you like have changed any, like, would you still go the active duty route, or what's your thought on like the guard and reserve? Like, again, I know every unit's different and things like that, but for like a young wingman or, someone who's starting out, like to get hired by a unit, like what's your thoughts?
Dude, I think that you have a lot more peace of mind for sure. And you have a lot more ability to like plan a family life around that. Of course, you're not really thinking about that whenever you're 18, 19, 20, you're just chasing a dream, like we have a bunch of guys that are in the squadron constantly. Like there were some guys there this weekend that were rushing the unit. Two of them were hanging out with us this weekend that were selected on the last hiring board that the squadron had. So it's like good to start getting to know those guys. They're about to go to UPT and B course. And I believe they were hired before I got to the squadron, but I think there's one guy that's in UPT and then one guy that's at B course right now. So we'll be getting some new young guys and another TFI soon. But dude, they are significantly different walks of life for sure. And depends on like what your definition of a good deal is, right? If you're someone who wants to like put roots down, but you still want to fly the Viper or fly the F-35 or whatever airplane platform unit you're rushing, that part can be really cool. But it is also very different as well. Cause like you have guys that are not, like I came from Korea where you have an entire squadron full of guys that like eat, sleep, live, like fly the Viper, hang out with the bros, and here it's like all these guys most of them have other jobs. A lot of them are airline pilots as a majority rule. There's some exceptions to that. But a lot of guys have these other jobs. Even the way that we go about doing TDYs is completely different than like what I saw on active duty. Like on active duty, or like, the GVATs are going to Red Flag, Alaska. It's like, sick. All right, we're loading up the jets. We're flying them on this day. All the other pilots who aren't flying airplanes, your commercial flight is on this day. And then like, for example, we went on a big TDY, like a longer TDY this summer with the unit here. And then they're sent out basically like schedules for availability. So we have like 6 or 7 guys that showed up for the first half, and then another 6 or 7 that showed up for the second half, and then all the full-time guys. We went the whole time, obviously. But that was just different. I was like, I didn't even know that was an option. Like, it's never even crossed my mind, So it's just very different worlds for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know about the Guard Reserve when I was going through ROTC or even starting the process, but I don't know. Again, the path I went on has worked out well for me. So not saying I would necessarily go and change it, but yeah, there's other options out there too, which is kind of cool. So.
I think that'd be my answer as well. It's like I've been thankful for the path that I've been put on so far.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd go back and change it, but there's a lot of really awesome things about if you're just gonna go and be in a unit and stay there.
Yeah, 100%. Especially, yeah. There's pluses and minuses to everything. So
for sure,
different fits for everyone. Cool. Yeah, I want to get your perspective there because obviously, juxtaposed to going to the Air Force Academy, it's quite different going to a Guard or Reserve unit. I would imagine.
Yeah, 100%.
Doing that path.
Makes me want to be an airline pilot. Yeah, real bad though. I will say that.
It's funny how that happens.
Weird.
Just different phases of life, right? Out of the Air Force Academy, you get a pilot training slot. Where do you get a pilot training, and how does that go for you?
Vance Air Force Base. I've decided that I grew up in Oklahoma, so I wanted to go back because I love it here. So, and got my first pick on that one. So I ended up going through Vance, which was great to be close to home. Then COVID hit, and I only went home 3 times, but that's all right.
Yeah. Though I guess you weren't allowed. I guess probably weren't allowed to leave or go meet people. I don't know. I had separated at that point. I was doing the reserve gig, so it was a lot of telework at that point.
They were weird times, man. It was super weird times. It was like the full lockdown, and then it was like the scope was kind of lifting a little bit, but they had a radius built, and my parents technically lived just outside the radius, and being an academy nerd, the rule says X amount of many miles, and their house is this many miles, so I didn't really want to. It wasn't worth pushing the test on that one, and it was kind of like our first year of freedom as well, so that was really great. So all the our academy bros and some other guys that were either ROTC or we had one Guard Reserve guy in our class with us, and dude, we really just had a blast because we all got put on casual for a year, so it was just let's hang out on a Tuesday and I don't know, drink beer in the backyard at noon because we can.
Casual status.
So it was highlight of the life, dude. What a year that was. It was my first ever, it's freshman year of college for me all over again,
Right.
My first real freshman year, I should say, because my freshman year was not like that.
Yeah. And you're making money and don't have any responsibility as a casual lieutenant for the most part, which is pretty awesome.
For sure.
So, yeah. Good years. Did you go through UPT 2.5? Were you in that time?
Dude,
frame?
I'm almost positive I was the second to last class. I don't think I was the last one. There was one more behind us, but I was 2 classes out from where that shift started.
Okay.
So I was one of the last people that went through everything. You get your wings at the very end, so on and so forth. And I'm thankful for that because I was telling you, I'm tactically average at everything I do. So I needed as much actually doing the thing time as possible. If I would have just done VR sims constantly, I don't think I would have gotten where I am today. For sure.
I have not talked. I need to get someone on the podcast to talk about the new pilot training. It'd be interesting. So, well, since it wasn't you, it won't be you that I talked to about. But yeah, again, it's all. I think it's all now completely changed.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring on any other young guy that graduated after me, they will have done it.
Yeah, interesting. Well, obviously, pilot training goes well enough for you because you end up going to the Mighty Viper, and then
yes, sir.
B course out at lovely Holloman, New Mexico, the Great White Sands out there. How was B course for you?
Dude, I loved it. You even say the joke the lovely Holloman Air Force Base, but I genuinely do. I love it. I loved New Mexico. My girlfriend, but now wife at the time, and every time she would come out to visit, she was like, I just love it here. And I was like, I think you're the only air quotes military spouse to ever say those words about Holloman.
Did you live in Holloman or Alamogordo, or did you live up in the mountains?
We lived in Alamogordo. Okay. There was a big apartment complex, and basically our entire IFF class moved into these apartments altogether. So it's kind of the same thing, Academy 2.0 or, pilot training 2.0. All the bros are in the same apartment complex. So it was just she'd come out to visit, we'd go to work, or it seems like she always synced up her trips out to New Mexico with when we had roll calls. So her and all the wives they'd have a wives night, drink wine, I don't know, whatever girls do while the guys are at roll call, and then they'd caravan up and pick all of us up. We're just completely wasted, having the time of our life. So we lived in town, and that part was great. The guys that lived up in the mountains, I couldn't have done that hour-long drive every day. I get it. It's awesome to live up there, but that'd be way too much for me.
It is nice up there. I'll name drop Flint. I mean, my buddy Flint loves it out there, living up in the mountains. And whatever that barbecue place is, like Jack's Barbecue or
Sarno?
The barbecue place up in the mountains, Jack's Barbecue or something.
Yeah, for sure.
It is good.
You talking about Flint Sarno?
Flintlock.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Flint. I guess. Yeah. Turns out call signs get
Weird.
sometimes reused or not reused, but similar ones get used.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So, yeah. All right. So out of Holloman though, but you're then to Kunsan after that.
Yeah. So that was a whole thing too. So my wife lives over in Enid, and the game plan was always like get back to Oklahoma. So if we want to backtrack a little bit, the first dream, kind of what we were talking about, is like you have short-term goals that don't align with your long-term goals. Is I really wanted to FAPE, which is a super hot take, because I wanted to stay in Oklahoma, stay with her, start our life, start our family. That didn't work out. Went to the Viper. And actually was like pretty upset about it at first, which is a crazy thing. There was this weird mindset around the Viper whenever I was going through UPT that like the shitty pilots got F-16s. And I got to IFF and flew with a bunch of F-16 guys. They're like, dude, that is right out. Like, we're the airplane that does everything that all the airplanes do, but we do all of it the hard way. Like, there is no, it's like you don't get to be the bad pilot in the F-16. Like, that's not how that works. So ended up not FAPing, and then whenever I went at B course and we got our assignment list, Tulsa, where I'm at right now, was on the list, and I was like, sweet, there's the shot to go back to Oklahoma. And then like 2 weeks before our like drop night, if you will, assignment night, we got an updated list, and they traded Tulsa for Buckley, and then got like 2 more Koreas out of it. They did some Air Force drug deal, and I was like, well,
sweet trade.
So I talked to Tiffany, and I was like, well, I can roll for Buckley, I guess. So we had 3 guys that rolled for Buckley. Very first guy rolls a 3. Second guy rolls a 4. And I'm like, I got this. Roll the dice, snake eyes. So
yeah, and for people listening, like literally this is rolling dice for your assignment.
Yeah, for the future of you and your family is put into the hands of 2 dice. So at first I was like, man, that kind of sucks. But I came around to that one like super quickly. It was fine. And then in hindsight, like this is exactly what I was talking about. Like wouldn't change a thing. Super thankful that I didn't get FAPed. Super thankful that I did go to Holloman because I met some amazing people there. And super thankful that I did go to Korea, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but I truly believe like that's where like the calling of my life happened, you know? And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't put anyone else in those shoes either for a lot of reasons, but
yeah. What year did you graduate pilot training?
21.
Okay. I'm curious, like where like the thought process that bad pilots go to the Viper. If you weren't surrounded by Eagle guys, I could see them poisoning the well. But I'm curious because, you know, as I'm getting out, right, like we were pumping so many people into the Viper.
Yeah.
Like I think there's one pilot training class out advanced that all went to the F-16, which probably 1 through 6, yeah, that's fine. Numbers like 7 through like 10, like are probably going to survive, and then like 10 through 16 are going to struggle. Unless it's just an awesome class. But it was an absorption thing. Like they determined the F-16 between all the TFI units, active duty units, like that's where the most existed. So we need to create more fighter pilots, send them to the Viper. Tried it with the Strike Eagle at first, and the Strike Eagles tapped out after 6 months when they surged producing crews and couldn't do it. But I don't know if it was that or just a rumor, but F-16 is quite unforgiving, you know?
Yeah. It's especially like being the guy that flies it now, it's like I have no idea how that mindset ever even like started to get festered. And it was really a lot of like is talk with students and stuff. If you remember go through pilot training, it's like you think you know everything, you know absolutely nothing. And it was just like a prime example of that. Like there's no validity to any of it, but it was kind of just like an underlying mindset. And so whenever I got the Viper, I was like, I didn't see it as like, oh, I'm going to be a fighter pilot. I saw it as like, I'm a bad pilot. That's like how it resonated with me that day. And like, we were a little intoxicated. I didn't take it well.
Interesting.
I woke up the next morning and I was like, damn, I get to go fly the Viper. This is great. But that night I was real upset.
Yeah, interesting. We had an E8 drop in ours, so it could have been a lot worse. Yeah. I mean, but I'm sure maybe the E8 was great to fly. Now that it's like no longer a thing, but it wasn't gonna be me. Okay, interesting. So you show up. When did you show up in Korea?
Oh gosh, October of 22, I believe. Yeah, October 22.
So the initial couple months in Korea, I assume, pretty good time, probably pretty busy with exercises, learning the ropes, and.
Were you ever in Korea?
No, I dodged it.
Wow.
Yeah, I go there quite a bit now. Actually, I flew over Osan. It's probably about a month ago. I mean, it was a beautiful day, which I was like, I just hear everyone talk about the milk bowl. I mean, I go into
first of the year.
It's always a milk bowl, right?
Always.
I was like, man, this like you could see forever. I was like, those guys got to be loving it. Down there.
There would be not a cloud in the sky, and you go fly BFM. And you're like, I don't really have a Horizon, but it's fine. We'll send it. Like it's just like soupy for some reason. You don't really know why. Yeah,
it's discernible-ish. It's always a milk bowl over there, and I only tag it. Those people once or twice every couple months, but
but checked in there, and I mean it was just Korea is it's an incredible place. Like I loved it. It was awesome. You have nothing to do except fly the Viper and like spend time with guys that you like can relate to on almost every single level. So you don't even become like friends there. You are like, you genuinely do become a family. At least we did in the GVATs. It's incredible. It's kind of like college 2.0. It's like the cycle just keeps repeating. You go to the academy, it feels like kind of this thing. And then you go to UPT, it kind of feels the same, but a little bit more fun. Then you go to B course, kind of feels the same, a little more stressful, but still fun. And then you get to Korea and you finally get through MQT and you're like, cool, I'm just a CMR wingman. I fly AC and Red Air for fun now. And
legit.
You do nothing. It's just like Monday through Friday, you go, instead of going to college, you go fly jets once or twice a day, or you do hot pits and poopy suits and you hate your life. But then Friday night rolls around. They're like, all right, what are we doing? And it is all 40 guys on the letter of X's that are like going to get in some trouble together, and in a safe way, obviously. But it's just so great. We just had a blast, just like making the best of the situation, just like super summer camp, if you will.
Yeah, I never did it, but I assume it's probably much like a deployment. Like your whole job is just to be the best F-16 pilot there, go out, do the mission, go to the gym, rinse, repeat. But Korea, you can have a little bit more fun than usually in the middle of the desert.
And ours was a weird one too, because I got assigned to Kunsan, which everyone was like, oof, going to Kunsan, not Osan. But they shut our runway down halfway through it. And so we spent 6 months of my 1 year at Kunsan, like long-term TDY to Osan. And we ran all 4 squadrons out of Osan Air Base. So living in a hotel. But that was cool too, because I got about the time I was like, man, there's absolutely nothing to do here except for fly jets, work out, and drink until I don't know my name. And I was like, okay, we're gonna go up to Osan now. So there's like a little more fun things to do. We got heavily into golf, me and a handful of buddies. So like every Saturday was like, we had the tea time on lock for Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So that was like a standing tradition during the summer and early fall. But then it's like the whole like said entertainment district or whatever right outside the gates is just an absolute blast. And now it's not just your squadron. It's, you got 4 squadrons that are beat bopping around together, and we kind of had like a rotation of like, all right, we all start the night at the A10 bar, then we go to the Fiend bar, then we go to the GVAT bar. It was cool. Like and then we all kind of end up at the same place. It's always the last night for kettles. For anyone who is a Korea guy knows what that means. So it was great, just a weekly rotation. But after like 4 months of that, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go back to Kunsan where I can like lay low a little bit.
Little health month.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about May of 23 here, but I think it's important for everyone to know is like this conversation almost didn't happen for us because we were talking on the phone as you were like driving down the road, and I'm just hearing some like high pitched squeals. I'm like, man, that's weird. What is that? As you,
for the record, I'd like to show that was the tires, not me screaming like a girl. Right. I'd like to let the record show.
Little patch of black ice.
Yeah, I was driving back home from Enid. It was icy. It was kind of slick, but it wasn't terrible. The road seemed fine. I'm driving a little slower. And like next thing I know, like my car breaks loose. And I'm like, okay, it's fishtailing a little bit. It'll be all right. And it just caught like one tire hit black ice and one tire hit like clean asphalt and just spun me. And I was just doing like 360s down the road as we were on the phone doing a little pre-interview, if you will. I get real quiet and I know I'm breathing real heavy, and I heard like through the phone because it disconnected because my car turned off. You're like, Teddy, you okay? It's like, dude, I almost just died.
Laugh about it now. And I was all the way over in Cambridge, so worlds apart, man. But technology, that's spicy.
Things you do for the podcast,
right, man? It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. A lot of people can't hack this. It's high G environment, high stress, very dynamic.
Yeah. And man, I had just gotten a new car a couple months ago. I'm like, I love it. It's great. And I went like completely like horizontally through an underpass, and I'm looking out my window staring at a concrete like column / barrier. And I was like, I'm going to hit this thing. And I wasn't going fast enough that I was scared, but I was just immediately pissed off. I was like, I'm about to total this brand new car. That was like my one thought immediately. It's like, I'm not even worried about my own life right now. I just know that like my whole car is going to be ruined. I've got a ton of stuff in here that'll probably break. I was just immediately annoyed. And then it just kind of like veered away. And then I'm sliding backwards down the highway, looking to like picturing there's going to be a semi just barreling down on me. And there was nothing. So like by the grace of God, it was great. It was like the perfect happenstance of that going down and nothing bad happening truly. But then you were like, dude, are you all right? And I was like, well, I almost got in a really bad car wreck, but I mean, I guess everything's fine. So I just like pulled out of the ditch and kept driving down the road, and we were good. I made it home safely. I drove a lot slower after that though. Spicy, man. Yeah. It was a long drive at 40 miles an hour. Yeah. But man, it just shows like things can go sideways quickly. And yeah, literally. Yeah, every line of work for sure. It was just driving down the road. So yeah, this almost didn't happen, which now I think lead into May of 23, because again, you had I would say a significant emotional event. That might be one way of categorizing it. That's the only way to categorize it, my friend. Yeah, walk me through that day. Oh man. Okay. Kind of build some context here is we were at Osan at this point, and we were doing another Korea exercise, as you will. So mop gear, all the stuff, full 9 yards, were 24-hour ops, so on and so forth. But it was actually kind of Are you wearing mop gear for this sortie? To the jet, not in it. Yeah, and for those who don't know, that's the chemical warfare gear, and it's turns out there's nothing that's great for a pilot that's ergonomic. Like it's the same terrible stuff. So yeah, for sure. It was luckily it was just wear it to the jet, and then technically speaking, you wear your gas mask until you get into the airplane. And the Korea ops are you don't start with it on, but you do everything else with it on. You just leave your helmet and your flak vest out there. So the gas mask was tucked away back behind the seat over where you put your helmet bag, but it was not on, which was nice. But so we're starting this exercise, and I think there had been new leadership that was taking over, and so it was like a really full up one. There were some that were day 1 and 2 were pretty full up, and then it kind of gets pretty lax after that. But it's normally a Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, like they kind of knock it off. But this one that we were starting, it was on a Saturday. We were going to go Saturday through the next Sunday. So an 8-day full up scenario that was just going to be absolutely miserable. And so we're driving to work with all of our chem gear, huge bag on our backpacks, on our little mopeds, and it's just pouring down rain. So we get to work soaking wet, all of our chem gear soaking wet. And so we get there and we go to step for first go, or brief for first go, and it's like, all right, we're going to be double turning. This is going to be the turn pattern. And then there was kind of some changes that happened last minute to like what the mission set of the day was going to be. And so we brief everything. And we get all of our gear on, we go step, and we walk outside to the buses. I mean, and it is just raining cats and dogs. Weather is like super low, but at that time I hadn't been scarred for life. So I was like, oh, whatever. It's just another day in Korea here. Like this is not ideal, but not the end of the world. Like I've flown a whole lot of days like this in Korea. Wasn't the end of the world. Like the weather didn't bother me back then. And so we get out, and there are, like our entire go, I was in these big, the metal hardened HAZs, and I have the one jet that is parked outside, like in the open. So I get there and like canopy's still closed, but it's just constantly raining, and by the time I like open it up, climb up the ladder, get all my stuff situated, and then like try to close it, I'm just soaking wet. Everything in the cockpit's wet. But again, I've stepped to jets in the rain before, like wasn't a huge factor, but get out there and get everything started up, and we get out to the EOR. And flight lead just is like, hey, make sure that everything's good to go, like everyone ready, blah, 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 just standard ops. And as we're sitting there waiting in EOR, for the exercise ops, normally you'll take off with aux over departure, so you're talking to the controlling agency, and then you have all your bros on another frequency where it's just you guys. If you have any issues, you can work through that. So, but for the air quotes wartime environment, we're taking off with tower over SOF. As soon as you take off, you switch to departure. After you get in contact on departure, you switch over to aux on your UHF-1. So a lot of radio frequencies changing, blah, blah, blah. That was really just the first thing. I'm like, all right, we're going to take off, do our, radar assisted departure, and then we'll start throwing radios around. We'll go up. We won't see each other for 45 minutes, and then we'll come back, fly an ILS, and I'll be done with this day. Not a big deal. So go to take off, and we hear an exercise. Like there are simulated threats at the end of the runway. So we're requesting the Viper flight expedite your climb up to altitude. And I was like, are they really asking us to like expedite our climb? And the weather is literally at 501.5, which is like all of our minimums, all of the wingmen that were flying that day. And so my flight lead was like, hey, copy, but like we're going to climb, but we're not doing like combat departures in the weather. That's not going to happen. But it was a quicker climb. I mean, instead of 80 degrees nose high, it was 40, rather than typical
but radar assisted trail. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was 40 still. Yeah. But I mean, it was fine. We did it all the time. It didn't seem like a huge factor at the time.
Be a champion.
So one takes off, he disappears, everything's fine. I take off, and as soon as I throw the gear up, lighting the handles on, I'm like, cool, everything's looking good. My DED goes out. I'm like, and my only thought at the time, I was like, dang, like it's gonna suck to do all these like radio changes like on the backup panel over here, So I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. Light goes out, awesome, cool. Like now we're up in the weather, like two's tied, everything's good. So he's climbing. My TD container was like way up here in the HUD. And I was like, oh gosh, we're really doing it today. So get everything, keep continuing on this radar assisted trail. And next thing I know, like, man, this is starting to look really weird. Like I'm losing more than my DED. And then I start losing a ton of information in the HUD that should be there, for lack of a better word. We'll just leave it at that. And the next thing I know, I like really don't know which way is up, which way is down. Lose a lot of that information. But we go through a whole lot of training in pilot training in the Viper. There's sims that we do monthly, like to teach you situations like this. So I thought, so I'm like, all right, I know I'm spatially D'd. I just need to do a standard instrument recovery. Like it's fine. I'll be behind on the radios. I'll get caught up whenever I can. But like right now, it's like aviate. That's step one, right? So I fly my just absolutely textbook instrument recovery, 90 degrees of bank. You don't trust your eyeballs. You're like, cool, trust your instruments. Everything's fine. Like get on your round dials, as they always say. And I fly my instrument recovery off my like ADI, not on my HUD. So I'm like looking down between the legs. I'm like, cool, I'm straight and level. Everything's fine. And then the next thing I know, I'm in a descent. And I don't learn that until there's almost like so it's socked in weather everywhere, but there was like a break in the weather. If you can imagine like a big trench, if you will, if you can kind of picture that, there's a big, almost like a trench in the clouds where it opened up. And about the time that I lost all my attitude indication, the last altitude that I saw was like 9,000 feet. And then I punch out of this weather and I'm at like 3 grand. I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Whenever I got into this clearing, I was like pretty aggressively nose low. I couldn't tell you an exact number, but ballpark of 15 or 20. Yeah. So as soon as I punched out of the weather the first time, it was like a quick snap and like recovered a level with my eyeballs, like looking out, like everything's fine. I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. I don't know how I got here, but my first thought was like, let's keep it in this clear air. And then I look up and then right in the clouds again, because like it wasn't much of an opening. Like, okay, I know I'm straight and level. Like, it's fine. Let's just figure it out from there. Get back on your instruments, and then we'll figure out how to get this thing either up in some clear air or just like back down home. So about the time I get back down the round dials, where I know for a fact I'm straight and level, my ADI is telling me some crazy, I'm super crazy nose high in a bank that I wasn't expecting. And so I look at that, and I look at my standby, and they're telling me two opposite things. My main ADI is telling me I'm like 50 degrees nose high. My standby ADI is telling me I'm like full deflection nose low. And as a Viper guy, you know, like there's one of those you don't ever trust, and it's that one.
The standby is never wrong. I've never seen it. It's like, it's accurate
never.
for about like a half a second, it seems like, after you cage it.
It's terrible. Even just sitting on the ground, it like whittles away, and you're like, dude, what are you doing?
It's so bad. Yeah, it's really bad.
So I look at both those two things. I'm like, all right, well, I haven't seen this.
What's your HUD doing at this point?
I don't have any like navigational.
No pitch bars, no horizon line, anything like that?
No, nothing. So, and all I had was like, I couldn't even tell you if I had airspeed and altitude, to be honest. I've totally forgot that. I think I had airspeed and altitude in it. But that was like the only information, but I kind of had just written it off at this point. It wasn't where my brain was going. I was looking at round dials only. So at this point, I think I'm straight and level, but now my eyeballs are telling me that, hey, you're 45 degrees nose high and turning left, and then your standby is telling you you're full deflection nose low. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, well, now you can't trust those. So let's look at like the truth data. Let's just look at what is your actual round dial altitude saying, what is your airspeed saying. And like, we don't look at those a whole lot, especially as Viper dudes. Like, you're a HUD baby. I mean, if anyone in the Viper says they're not, they're lying to you. But we do all these trainings on the round dials and backup instruments in case those things are gone, right? But if that's gone, you still have an ADI that you trust as a general rule, and I had also lost that. So it's like, well, worst case scenario, we can just look at a trend and try to figure that out, and like just fly literally like airspeed and altitude to get away from the ground, keep the jet under control. And then maybe once I trust both of those things and I see like climbing, stable airspeed, I can get on the radio and start talking. So about this point, I hear one on the radio, like, hey, Viper 2, push 7. Like, and at first I think I clipped it, but I was like, 2's unable. And a couple seconds later, chirp back like Viper 2, like push 7. It's like 2's unable, and that one went through. They're like, that's weird. And then, man, the next thing I know is I'm looking at my airspeed and my altitude, and one of them, that altimeter is just reefing. It's just spinning like its life depends on it. And about the one potato it took me to realize that thing is just clocking around, and that number is going down. I'm like, I'm in a rapid descent. Now the airspeed's up near like four bills. My brain was like, okay, you're pointing at the earth. Like, let's start this recovery. And like in that moment where the information that I finally trusted came together, was like out of the weather. And I'm staring at a rice paddy. The weather at that point was at 1,000 feet, and I'm 25, 30 degrees nose low, pushing 4 bills at that point. And I gave it, as soon as I see the earth, I give like one hard potato, if you will. Like, I just reef on the stick with all my might to see if I can just like squat the jet almost and just shark fin and stay in clear air and then get this figured out. And I just didn't have any nose authority, not enough at least. And it's like, they always talk about the time slowing down moments, you know? And I feel like that was the moment for me, is this whole like time slowed down for me. And I am assessing like, okay, here's the ground. Here's my like assessed altitude. And if I can just squat the jet and stay right underneath the clouds, I'll be fine. But as I'm pulling on the stick, it's just like I could see where that turn circle was going to be ending. And I was like, dude, this isn't recovering above the ground. Like, there's no shot. And so, like, just quick mental math said, like, if you hang on to this and try to fly it out, like, you're just going to be burned alive. And so within a split second, it was just, okay, there's no flying this one out. And I always talk about, like, you know, you get in a good body position, you tuck the neck, you sit back, use both hands and pull. And I was flying with my right hand and my left hand just like riding a bull, you know,
Really?
It was literally instinctually. And of all the things that went wrong that day, the miracle was that like everything worked the way it was supposed to in that exact moment, so I ended up pulling the handle with the left hand, and things got really loud and really, really aggressive, really fast. All the caps and all the boldface you've ever done, that anytime the word eject is on it, they always talk about all the sims that you do, engine failure right after takeoff, zoom towards jet eject. Like, you've said it 1,000 times, you've done it 1,000 times in the sim, but they never talk about like what lies on the other side of that yellow handle. It is a significant emotional event, as you say. So things get really loud and really aggressive. I'm conscious the whole time, I don't ever pass out. A lot of guys have, or they like air quotes, like blackout, like half of me wishes I did, but I just remember every single little detail. So I get out of the jet, and then immediately there's a huge crash of the canopy opening shock happening. And about as the opening shock happens is never my like eyeballs can open up again. And the first thing that I see is just like the airplane barreling into the rice paddy and a huge fireball. There's a video of it on the internet, actually, from one of the Korean like CCTV cameras that catches it. So that was like the first thing I saw, and the sound of hearing a jet in mill that you're like right behind as it barrels into the earth is like a very visceral sound that will never leave my consciousness. It's like, that's the one that like sticks with me, and like, to full transparency, like keeps me up at night, is like I hear it sometimes. Like, I've got to be, if I get really idle minded, like that still can surface at times, which isn't great. We're working on it. But I watched this thing impact and then start going through like the post ejection checklist, and I didn't have a whole lot of time. Really, the biggest one was like, it was just still windy, raining super hard, and I'm flying towards what looked like a kind of like a concrete dam, if you will. I'm like, that doesn't look like fun to land on. So I tried to steer away from that. And I had enough time underneath the canopy. I wanted to turn 180 degrees, but I was only able to get through 90 before I hit the ground. So I think whenever you like watch the video, I'm actually underneath the canopy for 7 seconds. Is like all the time that I had. So I make it about 90 degrees through this turn of what I wanted to be 180, and end up just PLFing in this rice paddy. But landed sideways, textbook PLF, best scene to date.
Naturally.
Which is always like, the SEER guys were just round of applause. Thank you. And so we go through, do that, and then I'm getting drugged through this rice paddy, and I can't get the harness undone. So right back to SEER training, and like, turns out like it'll auto release in salt water, which is great, but it won't get rid of it in mud, because it got all like trapped up. So I got the right one free, but the left one, I'm getting like drugged through the mud like that, and I cannot break it free and finally get out of it. And I walk over to, if you ever seen like the rice paddies, they're almost like really shallow ponds, if you will, and there's these little revetment or embankments on the side of it, and I was pretty close to one of those. So I remember walking up to it, and I just kind of like leaned up against the embankment, and it kind of all just hit me what had just happened. I remember just like took a couple deep breaths, and I remember saying out loud, like I don't know how you got me out of that, but like, thank you, Jesus, for saving me today. Like, I said those words out loud with my face like barreled in my hands, and I look up, and standing right above me is the rice farmer of this farm with the most confused look on his face that you've ever seen. And he kind of looks at me, and I'm looking at him. We don't really say anything. And he kind of looks and he points at me, and then he points up. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, your rice paddy's on fire. I've got a parachute laying next to me. Like, where else would I have come from? But he was just so confused. He was like, why are you here? You should not be here. And also, you just ruined my crop for this year. So he is really nice. He spoke zero English. And so he helps me kind of out of this hole that I was in, and we walk over to where there's like that concrete dam that I did not want to land on. And he's saying a bunch of words to me in Korean that I do not understand. And another thing, just crazy miracle, is there happened to be a guy driving down the road, and he saw all this happen. And I remember he was driving like a super, super nice like Mercedes Maybach, and he drove it down this like gravel mud road to get to us. It was like half a mile away from where the main road was, but he drove up, and I was like, man, that's a really expensive car to be out here in the mud. And he gets out, and those two start talking, and then he starts speaking English to me. He's like, what happened here? I was like, oh, you speak English? He's like, yeah, a little bit. So that conversation kind of rolls into the first thing. Like at this point, me and the farmer and Mr. Mercedes are talking, and there's another guy that is sprinting through all his might away from the crash site to us, because we're about 200, 300 yards like to the north of where the actual crash site was. And it's still burning at this point. It hadn't gone out yet. And that guy's sprinting up. And so now I'm trying to have this broken conversation of like, did I kill anybody over there? Because there was a rice paddy here, but it was surrounded by houses and apartment buildings, like kind of like really hit the bullseye there. I don't know how that happened, but it was within like 300 yards of like a full neighborhood of like multi-level like homes, apartments, whatever you want to call them. So I'm trying to have this broken English conversation of like, did I just kill that guy's son or family, or like, is anybody hurt? And so getting that to translate to him in English and then over into Korean and then back and forth, that was like a 5 or 6 minute process to like get the head nod of like, no, nobody is hurt. Like, we're sure. I was like, okay, awesome. And then, dude, probably the coolest moment of the day, one of two, was at this point, I'm starting to calm down, but pain's starting to set in a little bit. And I'm trying to call the ops desk, and I could not for the life of me, with all the adrenaline running, I couldn't remember the country code. Like, I had the ops desk number memorized, but I could not remember to dial +84 in front of it because it's a Korean number, right? So my phone isn't working. I'm getting frustrated. I'm also like caked in mud head to toe. And so the Mercedes driver takes my phone and walks to his car. I'm like, that was really weird. And he opens up his trunk and he grabs an umbrella, and he has a roll of paper towels in there. And he grabs these paper towels and he like rips my hands out and like wipes my hands off and wipes my face off and wipes my phone off. And then he holds the umbrella and then hands me the phone back so I can use it. And at one point I like touched my arm or something on my like flight suit, and my hand was muddy again. And I like looked at it and I was like, dang it. And I hear him go and like grunts at me, but he grabs the paper towels and wipes my hands off again and then like sticks my hands out. And he's telling me, he's like, use your phone, but like, quit getting yourself dirty, you idiot.
Yeah.
But eventually I can't get a hold of the ops desk, so I start rolling through all the pilot numbers that I know that I have that work in the country. I can just hit contact, call, and get it through. All the while, I've got a $40,000 radio strapped to me that I could have been using. And I was reminded of that later by the Osan wing commander. He was like, you have a radio that can do all these things. It's like, yeah, that's my bad. But eventually I get a hold of one of my really awesome buddies, Butcher McMahon. Shout out to him. He's an F-35 driver now. He won a safety award later that year for saving a jet. I did not get a safety award. I did not save the airplane. But he answers the phone. He's like, Teddy, what's up, dude? Aren't you supposed to be flying? I was like, yeah, man, I just had to get out of the jet. Like, I don't know where I'm at. He was like, oh, good one, dude. He's like, I gabbed. So like, same. I'm walking back to the squadron. I'm like, Butcher, I don't know where I'm at. And I'm surrounded by Koreans. He was like, you're not joking, are you? I was like, no, dude, I have no clue where I am. I just punched. And he was like, oh, okay. I'm now sprinting back to the squadron. Hang up the phone and just text me your coordinates. I was like, okay, I'll send you a pin. So eventually gets to the point where I send him a pin, and then I text the pilot chat, our signal chat, of like, hey, like Viper 2 just had to get out of the jet. Here are my coordinates. I can't get the ops desk phone number to work. And so eventually it's like at that point that text started going through, and now the world is caught on to like what has just happened. Like ATC has figured out like, hey, we don't know why we don't see Viper 2. Like they checked in as a 4-ship. It's only a 3-ship. And what I didn't see from the air was we were doing this big thing, this big exercise, and we were the first 4-ship of like 16 jets that were supposed to take off that day. And all of them most of them ended up getting airborne. There was a couple of flights that didn't make it towards the end, but there were A-10s that were already airborne as well. But all the guys said it was really cool. Is like the war machine like really turned on, because like it's an exercise. Everyone's doing training. So there's all the ATC is all their instructors up in the tower. All the instructors are watching over the shoulder of the younger guys. But all the guys that were airborne said like, dude, it was awesome. Like you could tell all the ATC instructors sat down. They threw out a Maltese cross. The A-10's weapons officer, he took over as the on-scene commander, and just like, dude, the machine started rolling, and it was really, really incredible to see that, like, in the moment's notice, like, it can be done for real. Like, that's why we do all the training that we do. So getting a little sidetracked here, but they get the machine rolling, and there was a Korean ambulance that showed up, and they checked all my vitals and everything. They had a lot of questions that I just kind of wanted them to just kind of give me some space, and I got a hold of the squadron, so I knew people were on their way. But I kind of had a lull, and so I walked over to like where the crash site was, and dude, it was like a 40-foot crater. It was incredible, like how much damage was done and how little of the airplane was left. Like it just looked like a bunch of little metal pieces. Like you couldn't even tell it was an airplane. It was crazy. I was like, man, I used to be like flying in that. Like, I don't, it just kind of all finally started like setting in like what had just happened to me. And about that moment, I heard an A-10 over my shoulder, and I looked out, and I see an A-10 like descending out of the weather that was super low. And he pyrepped it later, said like, dude, it was like right at 1,000 feet. But he stayed there, and he circled over me the entire time that I was waiting. And that was an incredible thing to see. And about that point, flight doc shows up. And so now like everything kind of starts moving. She runs out in the rice paddy, and she's like, are you hurt? Like, what can I do? So on and so forth. And I was like, I think my shoulder is broken, to be totally honest. Like, it's starting to really hurt now. But besides that, like, I'm fine. I just like want to get out of here because I'm tired of being like interrogated by the Koreans, and rightfully so. They just need information, right? So we get loaded up in the ambulance, and she tries to start cutting off like my flight suit and everything. And I was like, dude, I just got this flight suit made. I had all the fancy Juvat patches and embroidery all over it. I was like, you are not cutting this flight suit off of me. She's like, okay, fine. Well, then take off your flight suit, which was excruciating because of my shoulder injury. But eventually get out of it, and then get sent to the hospital in the ambulance, and hang out there for a while. I got to wake up Tiffany. It was great. It was Cinco de Mayo here. And my family and Tiff, they were both at dinner having quesadillas and margaritas. And I just sent out a family group chat like, hey, I just had to eject, but like, I'm alive. I'm fine. I just don't know when I'll get to talk to you again, because they're probably going to take my phone and I'm going to the hospital, but like, I'm good to go. And like my dad said, is like, dude, it was the worst thing. Like, we had just gotten our food, and like your mom and your sister and all your nieces are just bawling their eyes out. And then Tiffany had just sat down at dinner over in Enid. She was at a friend's house, and it just sat down. She took a sip of margarita, was about to eat, and then like this pit in her stomach. And she was like, I have to leave right now, to her friends. And so she went home, and I ended up talking to her. She didn't sleep at all for like 2 days, rightfully so. God bless her. She loves me way more than she should. But we ended up getting to like chat quite a bit. Never, I'm just waiting in the hospital, and they released me 4 or 5 hours later after doing a bunch of tests. And really the biggest injury that happened is like my spine was okay. My neck was okay. I have some residual effects now that aren't awesome. But dude, I got out relatively unscathed of something that like I shouldn't have even like mathematically survived. So it was really just a wild experience, and like truly changed who I was down to my core, for sure. But again, it's like what I was saying earlier, is wouldn't change it for anything, because it's changed me who I am for the better in a whole lot of ways. But it makes me really not like flying on days that there's bad weather out. So that's definitely the downside. It's like there's bad weather in the squadron here. They know like, oh, Teddy doesn't want to fly today. And I'm like, you're damn right. I do not want to fly today. There's an open spot in the schedule. And my DO is really awesome though. He pushes. He's like, no, dude. He's like, you're legal. You need to go. You need to go fly. Go fight those demons. It's good for you. So he pushes me, which is very helpful and very good. So that is pretty much, I think I got all of it. That's the whole story of May 6th. There's some after effects that have become difficult after that, but those aren't really that important, at least from an aviation standpoint.
Say that spicy is definitely the understatement of the century there. That's wild. I'm glad it worked out and you're sitting here today, because that story doesn't always end that way. Backing up to it, Block 40, does it have a PARS button?
They do.
Yeah. Is that something you think, like, could you have used the PARs? Like, I don't know. I only used it in the sim, right? Like it was new, but
No.
yeah.
It wasn't in my habit patterns really. Like it's something I've added for sure.
Yeah.
And how often did you like really use that button? Whenever you were
No,
flying?
I mean, I only used it in the sim. It was like new.
Yeah.
In Red Flag, we had our chief of OGV who got, come back to the mass debrief, and he's out of his block by like, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 feet, like significant, right? Where he pipes up and they're asking what he's doing. He's like, I was spatial D'd and he hit the PARs button. Like that was the first person I'd ever heard hit it. But again, it's in a weird spot, or it's in a spot that's, I don't know. The button was available, right? So that's where you're gonna put it. But I can definitely say it was not in my habit pattern. The habit pattern was what I would have gone to, which was do the nose high recovery, nose low recovery that you've started learning in pilot.
You always try to fly yourself out of it, you know?
Yeah.
But the PARS button is awesome, based off the nature of like, which we can't really get into the weeds of that, but it wouldn't have worked.
Interesting. Man. And then I didn't, I looked at the AIB. I didn't go through it like timestamp, but you've kind of described it here. And I think it like to hammer home too for people who need the visual illusion or think about it, but like, if you broke out at 700 feet or 1,000 feet, regardless, right? Like that's nothing. But that nose low that fast, and the fact that you walked away, like one that your body made the decision to pull the handle and out the door you go, and the fact that you like that's a miracle. Like I don't know what it is from 700 or 1,000 feet going 400 or 500 knots, 25, 30 degrees nose low, but it's snap of fingers.
They said I was out of the jet at like 700 and I think it was 718 feet is like where the canopy separated, I should say. So I had 300 feet of pulling to make a decision. So however fast my brain worked that day it's never worked that fast since then. I can guarantee it, but it was pull for my heart's desire for 300 feet. And then just made the decision.
Did they ever determine what it was? And so it sounds like electrical malfunction of some kind, which tricked the ADI and standby ADI, or some kind of disagreement there, right?
Yeah. For safety's sake, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds of that.
Fair enough.
AIB, SIB reasons. But yeah, just an electrical malfunction. There are electrical problems that grew into much, much bigger problems later. Ooh. So we'll just leave it at that, though, for everyone's sake.
Yeah, I think too. If Google. I'll throw a picture up here too, like an F-16 cockpit. Because again, if you have flown it, like it is, at least for the center pedestal, right? But still the same fact, like with your HUD is not even like your HUD baby. Everyone uses the HUD. That's what you do. But like when it comes to instrument recovery, you're using your primary ADI, which is between your legs. So again, like in the weather, looking down, like in a turn, like there's so many things. Like I get spatial D'd instantaneously, like clear VFR on the tanker, and then you go into the weather. It's like the minute you hit the weather, like, sweet, I'm in 90 degrees of right-hand bank or left-hand bank,
100%.
Happens fast.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And so like now I'm in a CDU jet, which is better for sure.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. But there's nowhere else to put it. So it's still right there.
Yeah.
There's no avoiding that.
There's some weird anomalies. I have to like pull up the checklist. I got it back there. Boy, like the IGI, so the embedded GPS INS. Motor Riley, who I had on the podcast earlier, he was a Thunderbird when this happened, and there was an anomaly. It's a note in the checklist, like where the HUD can freeze. And so I think he was taking off out of like Chicago, and it was like 300 overcast. And so like it took off, and like his HUD, like it looked weird, like everything had frozen. And I was like, this is like what the note in the checklist is for, is from his thing. And he just like right at the bottom of the clouds, like leveled off and like circled at 300 feet. Because dude, if I'd gone into the weather, probably a different story. So
100%.
Not where you want to be.
And and like I talked about how I pulled and assessed and like tried to just stay right underneath the weather. And like that was my game plan that day, was if I can just squat this thing and stay at 700 feet, I will just blitz my way back to Osan. If I have to punch the tanks, I will. But I will fly a 700-foot visual approach down here below all this nasty stuff. And like, I don't care where the weather is at. I'll just keep dipping until I get there. And that I would have been crucified for that too, obviously. But it was the only option that I felt comfortable with at that point, and even that one I couldn't get to work. So,
man, well, I'm glad it worked out. So out of that, obviously, you say that's it's changed you, for the better in your opinion. Which
I like to think so.
I definitely believe that. I know you've ventured in some new things. One of which being you're an avid hunter, so you've launched your own company. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this all kind of stemmed out of, 100% stemmed out of this. And so, after I punched out, I reached out to an old instructor of mine out of B course, and he just kind of helped me out. And he is a guy, Fester. He's who we took on our first hunt, so on and so forth. And but he was a really good mentor at the time. We'll start with that. Of, dude, here's how you get through all the investigation process, and then follow with that is like, here's kind of the steps that I took to get back in the airplane. And also Miami Vice, my squadron commander, was friends with him. I believe he's Thunderbird 6, or was at the time. He might be moved on to another assignment by now. But he punched out at Kunsan as well for his was like a landing gear malfunction. And so I had a couple of these really good mentors that just kind of helped me get back into the airplane. And so, dude, the fortune thing was, I didn't grow up a hunter per se. Like, I killed that deer right there in 9th grade, and I sat for 5 days straight with a friend's dad and watched the grass grow. And then on the very last afternoon, that deer showed up and I shot it. And I was like, man, deer hunting is like not for me. Like, I don't want to sit here for 5 days just for 3 seconds of glory, So I kind of wrote it off. And then we got back to pilot training, and all my buddies were hunters at the time. And so they kind of got me back into it. And then it just became obsessed with it. It was like one of my favorite things to do. But being in Korea, there was no options for that. You could do like the airfield management safety, like bird hunt on the airfield. But there was a lot of like red tape around that, and it was kind of a pain to get into. And so I just kind of let it ride. And so I spent a lot of free time in Korea just watching like hunting videos on YouTube. Really, that was just like my entertainment. If I needed some time away from all the madness, as I just lock myself in my room and watch YouTube hunting videos or talk to my wife, right? But I had this really big itch to like get back out there. And I was super excited to get back home and start hunting again. And this all happened. And one day I was watching a video, and I haven't seen anything really similar to like what we do on YouTube, but there's one group of guys that took a guy, old military vet, couldn't walk. They got him a custom wheelchair built and took him on an elk hunt, private land. And it was just like really cool. And I was like, they didn't really go too deep into his like background, but it was just really awesome to see how happy and like someone really believing in him and doing this thing and kind of sharing his hardships of his life with other people. And so I woke up a couple days later and just had this entire vision. I swear it was a God thing because I'm not that smart, but it was like, I want to take guys hunting and make it more about them and less about the hunt. Because it's really all hunting ever is. It's like, it's not about killing an animal. It's about the time you spend out in the field with those guys, the conversations that you have with them, or really the conversations that you have with yourself while you're sitting there in silence for 8 hours at a time. Like hunting has become a huge healing part of my life for sure. Like, I took my wife hunting the other day, and she was like, so you just sit here for 5 hours waiting for the animal to get here? And I'm like, yeah, like, it's good. Like, you get to alone with your thoughts, you get to muddle through things. And she was like, I should have brought my AirPods to listen to a podcast. I don't like being alone with my thoughts. So I was giving her a hard time about that, but it really has become a huge healing journey for me, and as well as talking about it, right? Like, me telling you the story today is so much easier than it was for me to tell like the AIB what happened a day later, and like the more you tell it, the easier it gets to tell. And so that's kind of like really the message. So Fortune Hunting Company, like the main mission is to share the stories of other guys, but do it through the world of outdoors. But I had this dream, but I'd never picked up a camera before. I didn't know how to use one. I didn't know which one to buy. So like the last year and a half, 2 years of my life was like heavily into camera research. How do you make a documentary? How do you edit footage? So on and so forth. And it's really it sparked like a new passion in my life. Like, it's using a camera is genuinely now one of my favorite ways to be creative, if you will. And anytime I'm doing any form of camera work for anything else, it transfers into like getting more experience for the next fortune hunt, if you will. But I had this dream, and had a logo idea and sent the logo idea to a couple friends of mine that were some artists. And then I had some artwork drawn up from another F-16 pilot who was in Osan with me. She was in my B course class. She's a fantastic artist. And so she helped me out with the first round of artwork, and we had t-shirts made. And man, it was just one thing after another. It's like we finally got to the point where like I really think it was going to happen. And then Ryan and Cole over at Blackhorn Outfitters, or Blackhorn Guide Service, I should say, to be exact. They like really just kind of took us under our wing. They're previous friends, Air Force guy. We had a mutual friend, and next thing I know, I kind of pitched this idea to him. He's like, "Yeah, dude, I think we'd be able to help, and we can help a little bit with this or that." And I'm like, "All right, cool. I just got to make the money now," and did all the fundraising and got there. And he ended up blessing us in a huge way later after the fact. And it's kind of just like it was just small blessing after small blessing, and a donation for a giveaway here, and so on and so forth. And we just like finally got to the point where I was like, man, I think this is really going to happen. And so I pitched that idea to Fester in like January of last year, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, like I'm in. I think that's something I'd totally be willing to help you with, and like be the first guy to do, and I'll help you work out all the kinks if you have to," and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean that's kind of the short spiel, if you will. But what I really realized too is like it's been really incredible to make. It was awesome to make that video to where it's like you follow him on a hunt visually, but what you're doing is you're really listening and seeing him tell the story of like how his life, his moment that was just like mine, was changed forever. And that's really what I want. I want to continue to spread and to share that, is like hunting really is healing, you know, and talking about the things that happen to you. The more you talk about it, the easier it is for your mind and your heart to process. And I want to give people a platform, because after I ejected, I had a conversation with this guy and that guy and that guy, and they all had, it wasn't all of them had ejected, but they all had an oh shit moment in their life that like really stood out to them. And everyone has a story, right? No matter how big or small it is, like it's impactful to you. So therefore it's probably impactful to others. You just don't think it is sometimes. So it's the dream was to give guys a platform and kind of bring back the old adage of like telling war stories, but telling them in a good way so that other people can learn. And even if we're not just debriefing so you learn to get better the next flight, but my hope and my goal is that like someone who's a hunter can bump into one of our videos on YouTube and end up leaving that 20 minute long video with some encouragement, with some hope, with some courage to go do the thing that's scaring them, or step out on a limb, or even if it's just like start believing in themselves again, man. Because like they see one of our guys that we took on a hunt believing in themselves and doing a thing. Maybe that's enough inspiration for them to go on and start walking a better way of life, you know? Yep. So it just kind of has slowly and organically grew, and I'm super blessed and thankful for all the guys that have like reached out and supported and helped. Like I couldn't have done it alone by any means. And so we're still growing. We're working on what's going to happen next year. Still in the foundation pieces of that. Really, I can only have the time and logistics to do one a year, but Fester told me this year, whenever we were doing his interview, he was like, you know, this is just how you're healing. And I didn't know that about myself until he had said it. He was like, this has been cool to watch, because like you investing this energy into this foundation, this is your way of healing, you know? And so it's been a huge blessing. That was a huge insight to my life. I was like, dang, he's right. And my wife was like, yeah, I could have told you that a year ago. And I'm like, well, you didn't, so.
You don't get credit.
Yeah, Fester gets the credit for that one. But yeah, that is the story behind Fortune, is like my life changed, and I wanted to take that and make it to where hopefully it can change some other lives for the better as well. And it's never about me. It's always about the other guy. I just happen to be the logistics guy in the background, which is perfect.
I'll link Fester's video down below, but if people want to learn more about Fortune and what you're doing, what's a good spot to find you?
Yeah, so I'll send you our website as well if you want to throw that on here. It's just fortunehuntingco.com, and then really our main platform is that YouTube, and then our Instagram as well. It's all just Fortune Hunting Co. Should pop up if you search that.
Perfect. I'll have to get you to connect me with Fester. He doesn't know me, but that's where I started my Viper career. He did my dollar ride. I got kicked over to the other squadron for a dollar ride. It was July. It was the hottest day in Phoenix, I think, like 10 years, and just my face melted off. So I'm sure he was just having a blast in the back.
That's awesome.
So small world, but Before we part ways, I know you said you'd be willing to hang around for There I Was, but anything I'm missing that I should be asking you or something, got to get off your heart there? Well, we got to, man, no tie, right? You didn't get a tie.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was the last thing I was I'm
go.
glad you reminded me. So my dad has a very dark sense of humor. He's hilarious, but I texted the family group chat. Hey guys, I just ejected. I love you. I'm safe. Blah, blah, blah. Go to the hospital, talking to Tiffany. And I get a text message from my dad like the next morning. So it's like later that night. And he just goes, so at least you get a watch out of it because of the whole Martin Baker thing. Right. He gave me a few hours to heal, but he was like, at least you get a watch. And I was like, in all caps, I'm like, I don't even get a watch. It's a different seat. And so then I started doing some research once it all calmed down, all the investigation is over. And apparently that ACES 2 has a thing called like the Grasshopper Club, like all the guys that have the seats have saved. And I don't really know what it entails, but they're like, if you're interested in being in the Grasshopper Club and can prove that you have ejected, send this email, your information. So I shoot him an email, never hear back from him. I'm like, okay, well, all right, not a big deal. And then I go to follow up and send another email. Whenever I get to that web page, on the main ACES 2 website is my story of May 6th about their ejection seat saved my life. And they won't even respond to my email. I was like, I'm on your website and you can't even message me back. I just want to be a part of the Grasshopper Club.
Yeah, no. Yeah, maybe someone's listening. Maybe it just got sent to spam. They're not ignoring it. But there's something like, dude. Hey, we got to reach out to this guy and get him a tie tag 100%. Or something.
If there is any of the Collins Aerospace people that are listening, my dream in life now is to set up with some watch company to where ACES 2 people can also have a watch. It's not a Bremont one like the Martin Baker one. Yeah. Let's make our own watch for Viper dudes. Let's do it. That's a dream and goal.
Dude. All right. Well, hopefully someone hears it and then they can get you in the Grasshopper Club. Or
I sure hope so.
Yeah, man.
It's really not the end of the world, but it's funny.
Here you are. All right. Well, Teddy, man, I appreciate you hanging around for There I Was, but dude, just being able to talk to you and go through a little bit of your story and obviously dive into the ejection, very powerful. So, man, I'm glad you're still here. I'm glad the seat worked.
Me too.
Quite spicy.
Yeah, it was a sporty day for sure.
All right, man. Great to connect.
Working through it every day.
Yeah, that's all you can do, man. And I know that's a lot. So, thanks for sharing that, man. It was a pleasure to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.